Whoa! Oh, let me get my samples down. My name is Quinlan. Welcome to yet another episode of Melbourne Musos Facebook Live. I hope everyone's doing all right. It's a bit of a tough week, very political and very traumatising and all that. And I've still got my triggers on. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And what happens is that when you're actually dealing with things like this, there's a lot of hubris about. Make everything count. So what happens is sometimes, but you need a pressure release, that kind of thing. And what I'd like to do now is actually combine the two, all right? Moving on right along from last week's Facebook Live, I was talking about odd times and all sorts of things and all the different ways you can, put beats together and all that. And I was talking about the 7.5 matra. Like that, you see? And what happens, hello camera 2, and what happens with that is that you're dealing with the bottom half of a time signature, getting straight into it. But then what you can do with these kinds of things is turn it into music that means something, okay? It means something. Make it mean something. All week. Bum, bum, bum. And all my little ones say, midnight who? Out where the river flow, bloodwood. Oh man, what a song that was. That changed the nation. That kind of thing, in the late 80s. Wow. That kind of stuff. Oh. US forces give the nod. Away you go. Oh, that's what you grow up with. God save the Queen and the fascist regime. It turns people's heads. You can be a complete dirty bastard, that kind of thing. But, you get your message across and people go, shit, I hate him, but he's bloody right, All that stuff, So how do we phrase this? How do we do this? What do we do? All that sort of stuff. Time signatures. How do I reconcile time signatures with what I just said? That kind of thing. Well, what can happen sometimes is that when you're dealing with the craft of music, I find it an absolute wonder to be able to sit down and go, oh, is that how he did it? Oh, like I also play guitar. I chuffed off and I bought a new pedal. And I went, oh, that's how Jack White does it. There it is right there. Bang. Boom. Oh, there it is there. And I used it during our little jams because what I do in this big studio while I'm teaching through the week is often when my drummers are playing, I'll go, yep, you hold that beat, okay? And then what I do is I just grab the old guitar and start jamming along. And what actually happened this week was I put the pitchfork pedal in, press the thing and bang, and there it is, octave lower, octave higher. Perfect fourths, perfect, oh man, this is how he did. Bang, and everyone just went. They didn't want to screw the beat up because they knew they were onto a good thing. It's just sometimes it's the sound, the timbre, timbre meaning, like, if we're going to play heavy metal, right, you want to get that. And then the melody comes out. But imagine if it was played with a flute. Jethro Tull. Is it still heavy metal? Timbre, sometimes that's what you score, that kind of thing. So when you're dealing with any kind of war movie, you're always going to get the snare drum. It's an instrument of war. Like I was saying last week a little bit, I name-checked machine gun. goes. And then what happens then is that you start to put up a frame. You might be completely barren of ideas. And what would happen is that you might sit down and say, well, I'll just start with that. I might do that. I don't know. One of the wonderful things that I always bring up is the story of the 4 Shostakovich notes. I mean, continental, conceptual continental continuity. But what it is what you do is the Shostakovich notes came from Dmitri Shostakovich's son when he was giving him a piano lesson. Papa, did you know that these 4 notes spell out your name? So it does, son. I'm going to stick with them. So you stick with the theme. And then what you can do is work the form. So what can start to happen is if you have, say, a jazz thing. Oh, I don't know. Satin Doll, Duke Ellington. My satin doll. Do it again. B section. Back to the A section, yeah. There you go, you see. Satin Doll, standard song form, A-A-B-A, 8 bars each, thank you very much. And that's what I was going on about last week with form and all that. And what you can do with form is that you can do many things, you see. And then what happens is if you're barren with the ideas, start using sounds. You can just get... One of the things about lessons and stuff, sometimes when I'm doing the basic reading, like this is a crotchet worth 1 beat. This is a minim worth 2 beats. Dotted minim, 3 beats, and semibreve and 4 beats. What does a dot do on the end of a note? Increases a note by half its value. There you go, you see. What happens if you have a dotted semibreve? Oh, well, it's 4. It's half of 4, it's 2. When you get a note worth 6. Imagine a guitar chord. Bang, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bang, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bang, 2. Oh, I'll never know that. But you would if you're playing Police's Synchronicity, the title track. You see, because that's in 6/4. You see. And what happens, it's also 1 by Metallica. There's a 6/4 bit. And funnily enough, I'm going to name check Magda Williams. How are you? There you go. We were going to do a gig on Sunday. It's been postponed. Okay, so if you're watching and you were thinking about coming out and supporting live music in Melbourne, first, thank you. But second, go and see someone else. We're postponing for a little while. And what happens is that what you do is it might be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. When you first hear it, it just feels like a rock beat, doesn't it? But what happens is that you can nuance it and get different times and things happening, you see. And then you can play over and all that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's one of the things about Stuart Copeland, about things like synchronicity with the Police and all that, which I'll do there, and all that. Because what happens is, I've said this little anecdote before, in the sense that he would say, I never worry about odd times. And I thought, oh, come on, what's going on? It's the old interview in an old magazine. So, well, odd time signatures, the way we play them, it always comes around the second bar. But he's right, okay? So if you're just going to count to 3, play a rock beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So on it goes, you see, and that's what happens there. So what can happen is that everything that I was talking about last Face Chook, which ended up on Dear Channel 31 on Wednesday, and all that, albeit an abridged version. Go and look at the whole thing, hopefully. It's a gift. And what happens is that you actually can see how you can nuance things together. Sometimes, there's an old saying, you work for it, then it works for you. And what that means is that if you do have a handle on your notes, you have a handle on the form, whether it be binary form. Buddy, you're a boy band, this whole song is in binary form. We will, binary form. A binary form, which means A, B, A, B, A, B. That kind of thing there. If you're going to do standard song like that is standard song, A, 32 bars. If you know these kinds of things, what can start to happen is that if you're bereft of ideas and you're just laying there flat and going, what the hell am I going to do? All that sort of stuff, it works for you. You could roll a dice like I did last week, and it might not be the notes like I did last week. It could be the form, okay? It could be like 1 is binary, 2 is ternary, 3 is a dice, 6, right? So you've got 1 is binary, 2 is ternary, 3 is standard song form, 4 is rondo, and 5 is 12-bar blues. 6 could be through composed. That's something that doesn't get mentioned a lot. Through composed is simply A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. Probably the best way to describe through composition is listen to any wonderful, revered drummer's drum solo. If we're going to take the Buddy Rich, the solo, okay? At some point, Buddy Rich, I've got old albums where he, move around, do different things and all that. But at some point he went, I'm doing the solo. And let me tell an anecdote there. I was watching the Lucille Ball show in the 70s, and the special guest tonight is Buddy Rich, that kind of thing. And I'm going, oh, wow, here we go. And Desi Arnaz Jr., if you remember the old show, this is the old timers here talking, sorry about that. But Desi Arnaz Jr. was a nice little drummer, young drummer, right? And he had the drum set in the main room, in the studio, but you know what I mean. And so they had Buddy Rich and said, well, if I'm going to teach you how to play the solo, and that's what it became, the solo. And the solo was through composed. Whenever you hear it, like, it goes, sigo lo snare drum. You do that for about a minute. Then you do with tom-tom. Now, this is Doris. This is Tom Tom City. Keep your eyes on a bargain, Marcus Astamine. Drum City. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he had that one. Okay, so he had the second Tom Tom too. But whenever you look at it, it was just his little bar. He had the towel and a little drink and all that. So he never used it half the time. I was just like, I'll put it up there, coffee table, drummer's coffee table. So what would happen was he would go. Oh, let me cross over here. That would be the B. Then he'd be doing his little hi-hat thing. And then he'd do that little thing on the rim. And then he'd hit every cymbal at the same time. And then he'd yell at his band. Hey, you with a beard! 1, 2. Has anyone ever heard that? shave that goddamn beard off. You're in my band now, you son of a... And all that stuff. Ah, good on you, buddy. There you go. There it is. Ooh, I wouldn't last long. Anyway, through composition. Okay, straight through. Okay, so there you go. And so what happens is you get your forms, you know, and there it is there. And you can nuance things. So if you're going to, you know, bereft of ideas, oh, what am I going to do? Well, how about if I do it on the tom-tom? And I got into a thing a little bit with this beautiful cymbal here. Oh man, 22-inch crash ride, you know. The Benny Greb. Oh, wash, 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 wash. Okay, there you go. I might use that camera for that one there. But anyway, what goes on is that was always the lead guitarist's cymbal. Just when I got it in 2015, with thank you very much Danny Balderston, who helped me choose the whole Meinl set then, that kind of business. And I went, oh man, what's that? You know, that kind of, oh man, what's that? What's this? He helped me pick these out. Oh man, what a pair. Compare the pair. And there you go. And what happens is that was always the lead guitarist. Huh? Oh, the wash. And then what happens is next thing you know, you've got a tune. You see, you might just play the same thing. Put in the Tim Colopy rim shots, mate. Yep. And then nuance the hi-hat perhaps. Get all your colours happening. Next thing you got the tune happening, you are no longer barren. And there it is, there it is. And what it does is it works for you. That's going to be the title of the show, I believe. You work for it, it works for you. And there you go. You put it in and all that. And next thing you know, even if you're just down in the ditch and all that, you can pull up and sort of say, oh, look at it happen. Ah, if I did that, thank you. You know? You can hear the money, all that. And that's another little thing too. That's the recurring theme, right? If you've got colours happening, you can start working between them. Common thing is going bell and then back to the right area. So it's bell ride, bell ride, bell ride, bell ride. That howl, thou. If you try and get a bit bombastic. next thing you know, wow, I've just had a bombasm. There you go. Bombastic. There you go. You've got to love that. Bombastic. You've got to... Bombastic. Something like that anyway. All right. Anyway, so there's something there where you can change the colours and do something very basic with just nuance. And what happens is if you practice it, it really is. You work for it, then it will work for you. You see, one of the things about this, one of the things that like all guitarists, I hope, strive to be, because it's said so often, is strive to be melodic. You don't force fit right into a slow love song or something like that, unless it fits. Or what happens is that you try and get the melody of things happening. Now, when you're improvising, there's always, don't ever forget, there's two main things. There's the improvisation where you're doing the solo, a la Buddy Rich. The solo. Okay. What are you going to do, Rambo? Day by day. Take it, but I'm coming to get you, Murdoch. Rambo 2, 1985. I was talking about that with Marcus the other. It seems like a Rambo kind of week, that kind of thing, Does everyone remember the plot of Rambo? Number 1 is the returned Vietnam vet treated like shit and all that. Rambo 2, okay, no man left behind. That's what happens there. Day by day, I'm coming to get you, Murdoch. All that. I've never seen so much Coca-Cola drunk in one film. They must have paid a fortune, right? And so, placement product stuff. There's the Coke machine. I have another Coke. Get me a cold drink. Here's a Coke. And I had one sandwich in 5 days. Murdoch had one sandwich and about 5 slabs of Coke. He was all caffeined up. Still shit scared of Rambo. Anyway, too many boom tissues tonight. Anyway, so what goes on is that if you work for it, it will work for you. So what happens? If you are flat as a tack, the things you have learnt will bring you back up if you take the time to write it down, set it all up, put it into a form, all that sort of stuff. And then next thing you know, that is why music is a wonder. It's a wonder. Sometimes we get beaten down with the metronome, all that sort of stuff. And then what happens is you'll listen to the aforementioned beloved Meg White, because I've done shows on, throw the metronome out the window, sort of stuff. Keith Moon of The Who Live at Leeds, oh man, all that sort of stuff. However, sometimes, a lot of time, don't get me wrong, I got metronomes hanging out of my drumstick bag, kept that one clean. But what happens is that get your even time, get solid with what you got, but be prepared to move. What's happening with your lips tone? Be prepared to move. A little bit quicker for the chorus, a little bit back for the verse and all that, all this sort of business. Have a little bit of a listen. I listen to stuff a lot and saying, that's just picked up just a little bit. I'm sitting there with the metronome. The Carly Simon thing, right? Singer-songwriter, incredible, sort of thing. And all that. And there's some tracks where, oh man, I can see what's happening. She's laid down the track. And then the lads in the band and in the studio follow her. And then I'm about to go. I never thought, I got a surprise when I was actually doing all the charts. It's, oh, she liked big drums. So it was like. Big and slow, that kind of stuff, bang, bang. And I've gone, what just happened to the metronome? Because I'm timing it. And what it is she's pushed the chorus. And the lads in the band have to push their recording, right? And all that, and that comes back a little bit. And then in the 80s, that Y and all that, you've got that, there's a bit of drum machine going on. Which continuity again, that's a show that I did a little while ago, right? A couple of weeks. Get my solid backbeat all the time, you know. Can you get it just like the drum machine? And that's really what it is with style as well, because what happens is that when you're thinking about the 40s and the 50s, you know, when recording started, you know, that kind of thing, the metronome was Mr. Tick-Tock and all that sort of stuff. There's a little bit of history to it too. Mr. Winkel invented it, but we know it as MM, as in Mazel metronome. But Mazel was a dirty bastard, and he pinched it, right? And by all accounts, I did a bit of research, and many years ago, but then I was going to do it the other week, but I didn't get there. But he, by all accounts, he looked through all the historical records. There was not one good word to be said about him. He was a dirty... And he died of alcoholic poisoning on a ship, or the ship sank, depending on what. See you later, mate. You know, there you go. Oh, well. So in the classical terms, it's Mazel metronome. It could be DBM, because it'd be dirty bastard metronome, because he pinched the whole thing. Complete plagiarist. Even Beethoven had a real crack at him, sort of thing. You want to go into the history of it. The history of the metronome. And I'll put my little bloke up there. But what happens is that when the metronome went from wind up as an aid to actually becoming digital in the late 70s and the 80s. Now think about the time, late 70s, disco. I will survive. No. I will survive. Gloria Gaynor. Rasputin. And the Russian Queen. What's that? Boney M. Oh. I was... Okay, let's move right along. Anyway, you got to have a bit of fun with it. Anyway, so what happens is that you had the drum machine coming out, and then things reversed. Vinnie Colaiuta was famous for saying it was funny, the sessions during those days, because I was getting called in just to do fill-ins, so it'll be... all that sort of stuff. I programmed myself out of a job once. I was playing with a little Greek band, and God bless them, the Lignos brothers, if people know about them, they owned their own little Greek restaurant or partnership in that, and I remember you know, and then it all those 5/8 and 7/8 and Kashlamiko and all the you know, and the Zebek, the dance for men. That's where they do the little dip on the 9. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Greek beats, beautiful. And there you go. But what would happen is that they got a Roland TR-808 and said, "Chris, can you help? We're trying to do a rhythm here, but we can't work it out." So I went round one day. I got plied with the uzo and all that, and I worked out that it could do a 2-bar phrase, 1 in 3, 1 in 4, and da-da-da-da-da. Whatever happened to, hey, where's the gig, mate? Automation. And there you go. Okay. I wish them well. I wonder if they still have that TR-808. Oh, it'd be quite the cash, you know, that kind of thing. I've got a 41-year-old big muff over there, kind of thing. That is a distortion pedal, everyone. And as soon as I mentioned it last week to the chap who sold me the pitchfork pedal, he went, oh, like that. It's one of the originals. Oh, sorry. Anyway. Before electro harmonics picked up and went to Russia and all that, and started everything up there, and away you go. Anyway, this is the drum show, and I better get a move on here. But what happens when you're doing with timing and stuff? I'm carrying on with the 7/2 matter which I did before, and the little anecdotes of everything as well. But what I did, I prepared something earlier here, and what it is also when you're feeling like, what the hell am I going to do? What you try and do is work to that form and work to ways of taking basic things and literally turning them upside down. I do that a lot. You probably see it, like if I'm going to do a rock beat. What happens if I that anyway, and then sort of roly-poly, something like that. And next thing, you're off. I'm thinking Primus there with Herb Alexander on drums, one of my favourite drums. I do love him so. Anyway, Professor Nut Butter. You remember that tune? Oh, Tales from the Punch Bowl, 1995. Not necessarily one of their most famous ones, but one of their most fun ones. I really like it. Anyway, there you go. Now, what can start to happen with all of this sort of business to start to finish off the show? Because I'm my typical 11 minutes over, and I've still got about another 10 minutes, so I've got another little bit of editing to do later on. But, any excuse to play brushes. What can happen? You can get your metronomic beat, you can get your things from anything at all. When I talk about being melodic, what happens is there's quite the genre where if someone has the meltdown on TV, someone will play to it. That kind of thing. I've often mentioned a very obscure Irish drummer in David Dockery, who makes it an art form. He just gets cartoon clips and plays along with it and all stuff. And it's brilliant, He did one with The Rock, rock wrestling, See what's cooking. And then it just goes to the polyrhythmic thing, because if we've got just the beat and we talk over the top, by its very nature it's polyrhythmic, because if I just talk like this, it's robot stuff, right? One of the things with being able to teach guitar a little bit is the difference between the Beatles' Let It Be. Let it be. There you go. You see, you sort of work it up. You make it become an extension of yourself. And what happens is I've got two things over there. I've got the easy pop melodies, the simple one, where it's all simplified, quantized down to just crotchet. So, dun 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 rum pum pum. Perfectly correct for year 5. Beautiful. When you get the Busker book, which I put up there last week, all of a sudden, dun, Sir Paul, dun 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 dun, advanced 16th note reading, that kind of thing. But what can sometimes happen with our aforementioned, you're dealing with all your metronomic things and working out this kind of stuff where you... all that stuff. What can happen is you can work on everything you want to do, but melodically. Okay, so I mentioned 2 face chooks ago that why does a lead guitarist have to have all the fun? I just did Let It Be with brushes, right? But I played the melody rather than just going, which also is incredibly important, don't get me wrong. But what happens is that when you're dealing with this kind of genre, you can really play yourself out of a hole. You can play yourself into a whole other thing. So, 40 minutes ago, you might be completely bereft of ideas. 40 minutes later, oh my Lord, I've got about 6 songs. Wow, I just cracked into something. Ha, all that. You work for it, it works for you. And there you go. And what happens with this is that one of the things is, play a lead guitar solo. One of the famous ones, is Frank Zappa, because with his last band in '88, affectionately known as the best band you never heard because it basically disintegrated halfway through the tour, but he managed to get about 6 CDs of it, and it's incredible stuff, incredible musicianship. They even started to get into Stravinsky and Bartok just off a lark, and one day someone came up with the idea of, why not we do Stairway to Heaven? That kind of And so what happened was when it came to the lead guitar solo, Frank Zappa didn't play the lead guitar solo. He didn't play Jimmy Page's classic lead guitar solo. They scored it for the horn section because they were that crack. They were that good with the little beautiful black dots. And it was like, ba da 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 ba 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 da 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 da. So on it goes, you see. It's beautiful. Anyway, I'm going to love and leave you in a little bit, but I did a little bit of a story time thing today because I haven't done one for a while. Magda and I were doing quite a few little things like that during the COVID lockdown. We were doing Carl Karma and the dance of the rock and roll interviewers and the, sort of things and all the risque little jokes and all that sort of stuff. But I've got another one. This is actually a little bit of a surprise. My dear friend Ali Lee, who is mum to the dear pooch Marley and all that, and the doggy park, our new favourite place. Okay, doggy Tinder for the old Marley. Oh boy, what the handsome young gent he is. Anyway, but what happens? Put him up there, I suppose. His little bow tie or whatever. But anyway, but what goes on is that I was helping Ali with a little bit of a clean out. I kept a couple of things, Ali. I kept those little books, the little story time books. And you know what? There was one there called Lazy Teddy. Okay? Some of my Facebook friends may remember that I did, in fact, rescue one lazy Teddy. More like a hungover Teddy. So I found him with no pants on. A bit like Humphrey B. Bear. But here we go. Lazy Teddy. To finish off this show.
There was nothing Lazy Teddy liked more than to be tucked up snug and warm in the spare room of Shagger Malone's drum house. Every morning the alarm clock would ring and Shagger would leap out of bed and fling open the curtain. "I love mornings," he'd say, stretching his arms up high as the sun poured in through the window. "You're bloody crazy," Teddy would mutter, and he'd burrow down beneath the quilt to the bottom of the bed where he'd spend the rest of the morning snoozing happily. "Come out and play, you lazy bastard bear," Shagger would call. But Lazy Teddy wouldn't budge. He would just snore even louder. Shagger wished that Teddy would be more lively, like his other friends' bears. He loved having adventures, but they would be even better if Teddy would share them with him. One evening, Shagger decided to have a talk with Teddy before they went to bed. He told him all about the band meeting he'd been on that day with his friends and their other teddy bears. It was lots of fun, Teddy. I wish you'd been there. We sacked the bass player and everything. It really is time you stopped being such a dirty bastard. Tomorrow is my birthday and I'm having a party. There'll be bands, they'll be all doing door takes and all that. I promised them one beer and all that. And and presents and ice cream too. Okay, from the local brewery, sort of thing. And editing cordial as well. Please promise you'll come. It does sound like fun, said Teddy, but it's just another bloody door take, isn't it? Yeah, so I'm going back to bloody bed. But I promise I'll get up just this once because you promised me a free beer on the band rider. Yeah. The next morning, Shagger was up bright and early. Yippee, it's my birthday today, he yelled. We got a gig and started dancing around the room. He pulled the covers off his bed. Come on, Teddy, time to get up. Just 5 more minutes, groaned Teddy, and he rolled over and fell straight back to sleep. When Shagger came back up to his room after breakfast, Teddy still wasn't up. Well, by now, Shagger was getting quite cross with Teddy. He reached over and poked him in the tummy. Teddy opened one eye and growled. Wake up, Teddy. You promised, remember? Said Shagger. Teddy yawned. Oh, if I must. It's another bloody door take, isn't it? Yeah, he said. And muttering and grumbling, he climbed out of bed. He washed his face and paws, brushed his teeth, tuned his drum set, and put on his best red waistcoat. There, I'm ready, he said. Good, said Shagger. About time, too. Just then the doorbell rang, and Shagger ran to answer it. I'll come and fetch you in a minute, he said to Teddy. But when he returned, there was no sign of Teddy, just a gentle snoring coming from the bottom of the bed. Shagger was so cross and upset with lazy Teddy that he decided to leave him right where he was. You'll just have to miss the door take party, he said. Deep down, though, he was hurt that Teddy wouldn't keep his promise. Shagger enjoyed his party. Didn't pay anyone, gave everyone a free beer though. Although he wished that Teddy had been there. That night, when he got into bed, he lay crying quietly into his pillow. Teddy lay awake in the dark, listening. He knew Shagger was crying because he had let him down and he felt very ashamed of himself. I'm sorry, whispered lazy Teddy, and he snuggled up to Shagger and stroked him with a paw until he fell asleep. The next morning when the alarm clock rang, Shagger leapt out of bed as usual. But what was this? Teddy had leapt out of bed too and was stretching his paws up high. Shagger looked at him in amazement. What are we doing today then? Asked Teddy. Going for a picnic? Stammered Shagger in surprise. Are you coming? Of course, said Teddy. Of course, I'm in the band and the person who's putting on the picnic paid us all the money, all the right money that we asked for.
The money?
So I'm up bright and early. Oh, and I'm learning songs for the picnic and everything. Oh, we're getting paid well too. Plus we have dinner and all that. The only problem is got to play that fucking chicken dance again with a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, And he was up every day. And from that day on, Teddy was up bright and early to enjoy another day of adventures with his drums and getting paid properly. And he never let Shagger down again. The end.
And that was my show tonight. The end.